I think we'll get started, and I just wanted to welcome all of you to our career chat this evening about job search amid a pandemic. My name is Michelle Warden, and I'm the Interim Director of Alumni Relations. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening. Thanks for coming. I've been working with Jessie Lombardo for the last, I think, 3 years. Have you been at the college for 3 years, Jessie? It seems like
I don't think quite yet, but it feels like longer.
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure to work with her. She comes to Geneseo from Buffalo State, and she leads our career development office and has extensive experience in the field of career advising. And it's just a pleasure to have her here this evening. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jessie.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Michelle introduced me, so I don't need too much of an introduction. No, I'm just kidding, Michelle. Thank you. How we'll sort of move forward with this presentation. I should preface this by saying I usually do. I have been working from the office 5 days a week, but because of the time, I did come home, and I will say I have 2 dogs and 2 kids, and they have been told, please stay out of the room. But for anyone with dogs and kids, you might know that if you see, disruptions, I apologize in advance, but that's part of the, I think, world of 2020 that we are living in. But I will do my best to keep any interruptions at a minimum, and hopefully we can get through this with none, but just in case. I will share my screen in just a second with a PowerPoint I have. And the PowerPoint is, I'm happy to email it to anyone who is interested in having the PowerPoint. At the end, I will put my email up, and that way, if you are interested, you can feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to send you the PowerPoint, a reference for any additional resources that we talk about. But one of the challenges, because I do a lot of these where there's a lot of faces on Zoom, and then we're trying to screen share, it can be a little bit of a challenge. I like to see people's faces. If you're comfortable putting on your camera, you can. You do not have to, but happy to see your face if you're willing to engage. But I will pull up the PowerPoint, and I will close it down depending on how many people have their cameras on, just so we can have a dialogue. I'm naturally better, I think, at this if I can have a conversation. It's more of a discussion, and I think people do get a little bit more out of it, but I understand also if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's fine as well. But just to put it out there. If you do have questions as we go along, I welcome you to unmute yourself and ask the question, or you can raise your hand, or in the chat box, feel free to type a question, and I can look periodically at the chat to see if any questions have been asked in there. So I'm comfortable with being flexible to meet, whatever you're most comfortable with as well. Any questions before we move forward? Okay. Michelle, if it's okay, do you think you could launch that poll real quick? I had a poll that I just wanted to do at the very beginning, just to get a sense for who's in the room, the virtual room. So if you could just take a minute does everyone see the poll? Great. Great. Can everyone see this, the results here? So it looks like there's 36% of you are happily employed but wanting to learn new job search strategies. So I love that. That's wonderful. There's a few of you in here who are currently unemployed, and then a few of you also looking to make a career change. And there's one person who put other in there. But I just wanted to get a sense for who was in the virtual room, so I can speak to some of those concerns, because I think where you are in your job search definitely can impact how you approach it in terms of if you are currently employed and you're just looking to hone new strategies. I think that takes a little bit of pressure off the situation, as compared to if you are currently unemployed or looking to make a change, if you're unhappy in your current career. It does change, I think, some of the immediate need of how you approach your search. So I just wanted to get a feel for that. So thank you. I'm going to share my screen and kind of start at the beginning here, and I'll keep it in this mode if you don't mind, because that way I can see better. I can still see your faces than if I'm in the presentation mode. So there's my email again. I'm the Director of Department of Career Development. I've been at Geneseo for 2 years now, and you know, this is our first webinar that we've done in this way at Geneseo, but I do this quite often with a variety of people with a range of backgrounds, from people that are approaching retirement and they want to come up with new ideas and things that they can do, all the way to working with current students that are new to the institution. So this is enjoyable for me because you're a bit of a different audience than, you know, I get to see every single day with the students that we work with. And so I'm happy to have this conversation. So please feel free to jot my email down. So I want to talk for a second before we get started. I think, you know, if I were doing this in a one-on-one coaching session, I would ask these questions to a client or to a student, really thinking about what are some of your goals for this particular conversation that we're going to have. And I'm also curious overall, if you were going to conduct a job search now, what tools and strategies you might use, and are there any current barriers? And you don't have to share this, but if there are some barriers that are unique to you, if someone wants to share, you're more than welcome to. But I think it's important to think about some of those barriers. You know, what might be holding you back? What are some of the concerns that you have thinking about that? I'm just going to pull the chat box open for a second. So I wanted to get a sense for, would anyone be willing to share either in the chat or otherwise, what are some of the goals that you have for this particular session? You can feel free to use the chat, or you can unmute yourself and kind of, you know, talk out loud. Some questions you have, some concerns. Anyone want to share anything?
Hi, this is Carol, and I've been doing a job search for a while now, and I would say that what I'm finding is that when a job is posted, that they're getting over 1,000 applications each day. And so really the chances of you getting an interview is pretty slim with that. And I really don't know what to do about that. If there's anything you can do about that.
Yeah. I think your concern is really valid, and you bring up a really good point, Carol, especially amidst a pandemic when many people have lost a sense of security, have lost their jobs. Whole industries have been really completely changed, like hospitality and tourism, for example. It's made the job market even that much more competitive. So what do you do as a candidate to stand out? But I think even more than that is thinking about what are some other strategies that possibly you can employ to help to offset some of that competitiveness for the advertised postings. And I will talk a lot about that today. I was just talking to someone earlier this afternoon, and you know, I was asked the question, how would you job search? And you know, someone says, well, look for advertised postings. And while that is one method, one of the things that I will say to everyone is that you know, 70 to 80% of jobs are never posted anywhere for anyone to see. And so how do you begin to tap into that hidden job market in a way that doesn't necessarily put you in the thousands of applicant pool, where if a job is posted publicly somewhere, it tends to get so many applications to that one position. So we'll talk about other strategies to target that hidden job market, because I think your concern is really one that is shared by many, many people. So thank you for sharing that, Carol. Someone else was going to say something. So one comment we had in the chat is to learn how 2020 job search will be different than it was 6 years ago when this person did it last. We are looking to relocate, so we're looking for new positions in the spring. So we can talk about what do you do if you're relocating to a completely different area and you're not familiar with maybe some of the school districts or some of the organizations in your targeted industry. There's actually something we have in career development called Career Shift. It's a database of contacts, employers, and jobs. And I will show you how to pull up different organizations based on industry and location to begin to target your search a little bit more. So I think the biggest thing that's different now in the 2020 job search is a kind of big picture, just hit that real quickly to answer that question, and then we'll go through specific strategies. The thing I think that is most different is that now everybody knows how to go to an organization's website and look for jobs that might be posted. Everybody does that. Whereas before, maybe even 5-6 years ago, that was a newer technique. Not every organization had, definitive websites for career opportunities. So I think that's become more mainstream, where now it's more about how do I align my skills that I have with a particular type of job or environment. And because the world of work is changing so quickly because of technology, it's less about looking for a job and it's more about looking for work, thinking about what skills do I have, what interests do I have that align with specific kinds of work, and how do I figure out how to target these types of employers who would match these skills and interests. I think that's the biggest shift, is that it's no longer about you meeting the qualifications of a job posting. It's about you showcasing your brand and your experience and your skills and your interests, and helping organizations understand how you align with their own values and the work that they're doing. So it's a shift, I think, from that context. I think some people would also say it's different because during this particular, in the last recession of 2008, 2009, jobs were just there were no jobs. A lot of jobs were just completely decimated. This time around, I think employers have shifted and pivoted quite quickly to remote work. And so there are certain industries that are hiring. And so understanding where those opportunities are and how to align your skills in ways that can perhaps allow you to use your transferable skills in different industries that have a demand. And I'll share what those are with you. So thank you for those questions. Anyone else want to add anything? Any particular concerns, thoughts, goals that you have? Okay. And even if you didn't respond, I'd like you to think about that. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but have somewhere to write some things down, take some notes, and things you can come back to as we go through.
Jessie?
Yes.
I'm interested in a lot about remote work from home and how to find legitimate opportunities there, and versus all of the scams that you may find doing that kind of search online too.
Yeah, I have some great resources for you, Andrea, that I'll share that are specific to remote work, and in some cases even micro type projects that can allow you to sort of dabble a little bit in certain things just to see, do you like it? How does it work? So I'll share some of those resources. But the good news there is that most companies have pivoted to remote work, in some way, shape, or form. And so while, I think you'll find a lot of industries probably won't ever go back to completely fully in the office. I've talked to quite a few employers that have fully, that were remote before this and now have just kind of perfected that practice along their whole organization versus just specific departments that have been remote. So I think a lot of employers are realizing cost savings that are associated with remote work because you don't have to pay for physical space. And that's a huge expense to many employers. All right, I'm going to share this again. We'll go through some things. The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of strategy. So a lot of times when I talk about job search, people often ask me, tell me the techniques, tell me exactly how to find a job. The techniques, to me, the resources I will share, they're important, but I don't think that they're as important as coming up with a strategy for your job search. The first step that I think most people often overlook is understanding your skills, your experience, and your interest. What does that look like? Have you ever written that out in some way? You have to be able to articulate to an employer, regardless of industry, what skills do you have and how are those skills relevant to this particular job and or industry. So even if you're one of the people in here who said, I'm thinking about a career change, the world of work is so adaptable now. I think more employers are used to seeing people from different backgrounds breaking into new fields. But what they care about is what skills do you have and how do those work in my industry? And so you have to understand not only what your skills are, but how do those skills fit into the industry you're interested in? And that might look different in different industries. And you have to give specific examples of how how you use those skills, how those skills have been effective, and also what experience have you had and why is that, how is that relevant? And also your interest, aligning your interest with various organizations' values is really important. More and more employers are evaluating less on, degree you have, more on cultural fit. Do you fit within this organization? Because if you're a better fit culturally within an organization in terms of your values, you're probably going to have a little bit more longevity than somebody who's just kind of in it for, this sounds like a great position and it's my next stepping stone to get to that next place. A general idea of where you're heading. And what I mean by this is a lot of times people think that if I'm open to anything, I'm going to have more opportunities. When actually, as much as that sounds very intuitive, it's actually counterproductive. You have to know exactly where you want to go. I like to think about job searches like developing campaigns. So say you're interested in public relations, say you're interested in social media marketing, say you're interested in maybe doing some branding, say you're maybe interested also in learning more about HR. I look at those as separate job search campaigns. So you're gonna have to understand where you're going, the skills of that industry, so that you can target and tailor your search directly to that area. So rather than saying, well, I'm open to anything, and I'm just going to kind of go online and check out what's out there, that's actually a really ineffective strategy. It's kind of like planning a trip and just saying, well, I'm just going to go and see where I end up. As you're searching and talking to people, and as we talk about networking, one of the things I'll share is that as you're connecting with other professionals who perhaps work in your desired industry or the industry you're in now, they're going to want to know you have some specificity in your search. It's not enough just to contact someone and say, I just have some questions. I just want to talk to you just about, tell me what you do. People are way too busy for that. They want to know, tell me exactly what you're looking for. Tell me how I can help you. Let's get right to it. So you have to have a sense for where you're headed. Also, this will allow you to see where you need to focus your time and energy. If you're struggling with this part and you don't know where you're headed, it's time to take a step back a little bit. And I think this is where feedback from others can be helpful too. Just begin talking to other professionals, other contacts. Think about your skill set you have. It's almost like starting again. Think back to maybe your college experience where you're trying to figure out, what do I want to major in? The career planning process is very cyclical. It always starts with self-knowledge. And if you don't have a good sense for self, it's very hard to guide the rest of your search in that way. At the same time, I also realized that some of you may be unemployed, as we found from the survey at the beginning. There's a different sense of urgency. Sometimes you take a job because you need to pay your bills, and maybe that can be sort of give you a little bit of room to breathe while you explore some of these other more long-term career plan strategies that you have. The last thing I'll say is about strategy, is to attitude. Attitude is so important as you approach a job search. If you are gainfully employed and you're just wanting to touch up on strategy, chances are your attitude is going to be maybe a little bit more positive than if you've just been laid off or you've just lost your job, and rightfully so. But I think most employers can pick up immediately on someone who is maybe bitter or upset. And so as a career coach, and I've been doing this for a lot of years, I can pick up immediately the minute someone sits down if they're mad and upset, and in a lot of cases rightfully so. And I completely can empathize, and I think there's a time and place for that, but you have to find a way to find a positive outlook in looking forward to some of these opportunities, because that lack of positivity, or if employers read through that, you know, you're just not feeling good about this, or maybe you're lacking some confidence, they can see through that, and that will affect your job search. And I'm happy to talk to people about that one-on-one if you have some questions, because I've spent a lot of time researching this, and I do think it's a really important part of the job search, because employers will pick up on that. I talked about a couple of these, but I will say also focusing on quantity over quality. I'm going to talk about targeting or tailoring your search. I'd rather have you send out 10 very targeted and tailored resume and cover letters to specific targeted employers than have you say, you know what, Jessie, I emailed 100 different companies. I sent out, you know, 100 different resumes. I just kind of blanket search. That was kind of like the old way to job search. That way is no longer. A lot of companies, especially larger companies, we use applicant tracking systems. And so they're looking for the jargon of their field. So they're using AI, they're using artificial intelligence to screen candidates. You won't even get through if you're not using the same language of that particular industry and field. So it's better to spend your time on those 10 well-defined, tailored, you know, 10 is kind of an arbitrary number, whatever works for you. It's better to spend your time really focusing and targeting than to just mass mail or mass email, or just kind of put your resume out on a job board. It's not wrong to put it out on a job board, but, you know, going back to the question about scams, you're going to find more scams related to some of those job boards than if you were to target employers directly. Reliance on posted opportunities. Like I mentioned at the beginning, majority of jobs are never posted. And so if you're only relying on those jobs that are posted on Indeed or posted on other job boards, you're applying to the jobs that everyone else is, and you're going against hundreds, in some cases thousands of applicants, and it's going to be much harder to get to the top of that applicant pool when you're competing against that many people. So try to avoid just relying on that one method. We talked about a systematic approach. Research is really important too. A lot of people want to jump right into the job search, but it's actually much more beneficial for you to take a step back and think about, how can I learn more about these types of companies, industries, people, so that I can understand where I might have some gaps that I need to work on. You know, maybe there's a skill I don't know for this particular field, and in order for me to even be considered as an applicant, I need to know X, Y, and Z. It's better for you to do that homework ahead of time, figure out how to fill in those gaps, and then move forward with that application. And then last on this slide is not reaching out to others. You should have definitely a team of people. And you know, I say team, it could be one person, it could be 8 people. But somebody who can give you some feedback, run some things by them, whether that's a second glance at your resume, your cover letter, someone you want to practice interview skills with. Maybe you haven't interviewed in a while and it's changed drastically. Somebody to kind of push you or be accountable for. You know, I don't know about you all, but I need accountability partners for certain things in my life. And I think job searching is one of those things. So if you have an accountability partner where you say, you know, every week I'm gonna, you know, research 2 new companies, or I'm gonna make 2 new contacts, and that's my goal. You need someone to be accountable to if you know that that's something you're gonna struggle with, if you struggle with the kind of that keeping, you know, progress moving forward. Okay. All right. So the name of this workshop was Amid a Pandemic. So, you know, we have to talk about COVID in here. I know we've totally overused the phrase silver lining. Okay, so I'm not even going to try to avoid that phrase. But I have always said this with people that I've done job search with, and I've people that have been laid off, lost their jobs, women or men who have been, maybe caregivers and decided after many years of being at home that they want to re-enter the workforce. So some pretty big, challenges to think about. I always frame it like this. Sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to change. Sometimes something has to happen, and although those things can be very unfortunate and very sad and can cause a lot of not positive feelings around it, I think you have to focus on so if you've lost your job, if you are unemployed, I think it helps to think about sometimes we need to be pushed out of our comfort zone to change, and in finding the positive side of this, which is this is a time for me to explore the things that I really would like to do. What have I learned about myself? Where do I see myself headed? And so really try to shift your mindset to a place where, this is not enjoyable. This is not fun. I didn't ask to be in this situation, but since I am in this situation, here's what I can do now. And here's the resources that I can lean on to help me get to where I want to be. Like I mentioned before, with COVID, there are some industries that are emerging. IT, instructional design from an online perspective, advanced manufacturing, supply chain, logistics. There, even in some fields of education, depending on what industry you're working in, there's a lot of movement. There's movement in healthcare in different capacities. I think I'm just going to stop my share real quick and check the chat because I saw somebody put something in there. So there are areas that are of positive. So someone wrote in the chat, I wanted to start freelancing for a while, but could never make the leap while I had a job because it would mean giving up benefits and stability of a paycheck. Thank you for sharing that. I think that is exactly what I meant. And for some people, it's a salary, right? So you're just making a lot of money. It's like, well, I can't afford to stop out. I mean, I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. I totally relate, and I'm not trying to be unrealistic when I paint this picture of, oh, this is this great experience. I fully get it that if you lose your job and you do not have income, it is a really bad situation. But I think it can give you the opportunity to think about what have I learned, and this is a chance where I can really lean into that. So thank you for sharing that. And I love how you put choice in quotes. It is a choice, but it's a little bit more of a forced choice now. So thank you for sharing that. Just share this again. Okay. Everyone's situation is unique too. And I think that's another important part of this, that what works for someone's job search strategy is not going to work for somebody else. So if you're talking to other professionals and they're like, you have to do this, I really don't believe in that. I think you have to do what works for you, what you're going to do, and what you're going to stick to. And the other thing with COVID is that adaptability is key. Every single employer I talk to, they say right now, what I'm looking for is someone who can be adaptable. So if you can demonstrate your adaptability and that you're a quick learner, you don't have to have every qualification they're seeking. Most employers want somebody, can you jump in? Do you have the basic skill set? Can you demonstrate that you can work hard? Do you have a history of work? All right, let's get to work. They say, well, not they say, but research shows, especially women will not apply for jobs that they do not meet all the qualifications for. I can say with great confidence, in many cases, as long as you meet the major requirements of some job postings, you should still apply. Even if you don't think you have all the qualifications, put your hat in the ring. It's worth a shot to put yourself out there. And I don't mean just haphazardly throw a resume together. I mean, still do the work, but just because you don't meet every single qualification on there, I still say, go for it. I think they might see something in you that they don't see in other candidates. So let's go down a little bit more here. Okay, so let's actually talk about what does a job search strategy look like? What are the steps? So we talked about the self-assessment and reflection. Second to that is the research. So who am I? What am I looking for? Okay, now it's time for me to go look at what companies are out there that have these things that I'm looking for. And I'm going to show you ways to research today. I asterisk branding and strategy because I think out of this whole thing, those are the hardest things to do. Branding might be something newer if you haven't job searched in a while, because back when, at least when I graduated college, you filled out a resume, you mailed it places, and you hoped that you heard a response, maybe even a letter in the mail saying, thank you, no thank you. But now branding is a big thing because people Google you. So if you haven't Googled yourself lately, go do it. What comes up? Think about it from a third party lens. What impression would I get if I Googled you? And an impression is also if nothing comes up. If nothing comes up about you, that's an impression for me. You have no brand out there. So it's important to think about, even for those of you, and it took me a while to adapt to it too, and I only did it out of necessity, I swear. But now I'm kind of addicted to it. Social media, LinkedIn, that all creates a brand. What does your brand say? Now, I'm not suggesting you go out and get on every social media platform, but I will say Twitter is one of my favorite ones for professional information. If you want to learn about an industry, you want to learn about what are in-time trends, Twitter is the place to be. I learned so much on Twitter about different industries and employers. You can follow employers on there. So your brand is not only what you showcase, but it's what you do and how you engage. So if I go to Google search you and I find you on Twitter and I look and I see that you're following companies in my industry, you're following what I would call influencers in my industry, you have a completed LinkedIn profile that's very engaging and active in terms of like things you've done, skills you have, endorsements, that brand is much more powerful than someone who has nothing that comes up at all. I love the question that someone asked at the beginning, which was, how is job searching now different than 6 years ago? I think this is another area that's different. 6 years ago, when I did this work, it was told to me by the people who were kind of influencers in my field at the time, unless you were in art or like a visual communication, you should shut your social media down because it has no place in the job search. I absolutely disagreed with it then, and I sure disagree with it now. If you can take that and make it professional, and you can use that as one more tool to communicate your skills, your knowledge, or use it to gain more skills and knowledge and connections, you should absolutely be doing that. So that brand is really important. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. The strategy, the different methods, targeting resumes and cover letters, how do you engage and expand your network? How do you identify potential organizations and jobs? And also, how do you identify the type of work environment that's a good match for you? I often find myself saying to people, the question we always get asked when we're maybe younger and just kind of starting out in our career is, what do you want to be? Not where do you want to do it? And I think the where do you want to do that work is equally as important as what do you want to be, because that environment really changes the nature of that work. The tracking of your search is really important. You don't want to end up being a passive job seeker. So if you apply for a job, if you reach out to a contact, and that could just be reaching out on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I'd love to be able to ask you some questions about certain trends in your industry. Do you have some time to connect? And you don't hear back from that person. Give a little bit of time and follow up. There's nothing wrong with following up. You should always be following up. If you send a resume and cover letter in somewhere and you don't hear back, pick up the phone and call, send an email, unless of course they say don't call. But you should always be following up. That allows you to know where you're sitting in that search process. I just heard the other day an employer tell me that the difference between, so we're in the midst of our accounting recruitment right now, and one of the firms said, I will tell you the differentiating factor of 5 candidates who were really the same on paper, both outstanding in their interview. She provided the 3 job offers based on the follow-up. One was a follow-up with thank you letters and sort of referencing some key points. And she went with those candidates because they differentiated themselves in that way. So if you can find any way to differentiate yourself, I think the thank you letter or the follow-up at the end of an interview is a great way to do that. And then, of course, you know, there's the whole concept of offers and negotiation. So that's kind of like the big picture process of steps to a job search. We've talked a lot about the self-assessment piece at the beginning, but I want to talk about research. How do you find out about people and places to work, why it's important? Again, you know, how do you look at that gap analysis? What types of skills might I need? One of the best tools, I think, while I don't always promote applying for online jobs as the #1 strategy to find jobs, I do think reading online job postings is one of the best way to learn and do a quick skill scan. So if you're interested in a particular type of job and you go to, let's say, you know, any job search engine and do some searching, say you go to Indeed and you type in, you know, career counselor, and all those jobs come up. If I start reading through them, I'm going to notice some central themes that are important in that kind of work. What I want to do is think to myself, okay, these are the skills that are kind of the themes of this kind of job. These are the skills I have. In the middle is that gap. What do I need to do to kind of, you know, bring those 2 things closer together? So reading job descriptions is a great way to begin to evaluate your skill set. What do you need to do to be a more competitive candidate for some of those positions? Also with the research is showing a connection. You know, a lot of organizations have values that go well beyond, you know, the work and the products that they produce. How can you demonstrate maybe you're also community service minded, maybe you are into sustainability, maybe you are very tech savvy, maybe you have also a value of innovation and you can showcase that. So how do you show that cultural fit as well? So reading the postings and then also thinking about, okay, so if I don't have these skills that I might be seeing, how do I get them? A couple of suggestions. One would be looking at your professional associations. So what are some of the professional associations of my field that I'm interested in? And if you have access, some of you will through, if you're working right now through organizations, some organizations will have access to LinkedIn Learning. There are a lot of course modules on there that teach different skill sets. For example, if you want to learn Excel, if you want to learn strategic planning, it used to be lynda.com and they were bought out by LinkedIn. Some of them are free through LinkedIn, not all of them, but some of them are free. But if you're, depending on the organization you're currently working with, for some of you, you might be able to go in and look at some of that course content. The other thing here, you know, another free, I talk a lot about free options, are MOOCs that are free. And MOOC is a massive open online course. And a lot of colleges will offer MOOCs for like a quick, you don't even have to pay for it. You can just kind of audit a class just to learn a new skill. So if I'm a career changer, I'm unemployed and I'm applying for a job, the first thing an employer is going to say to me is, okay, what have you been doing? You know, people who are in transition often are worried about that gap, you know, if there's a little bit of gap there in employment history. Actual paid employment is not the concern. What the concern is if you've been doing nothing. So if you've been laid off for 6 months, if you've been employed for a little bit of time, and you say, you know what, I've been retooling, I've been looking at other options, and in the meantime, I've really taken some time to develop my skills in whatever those things are. This is how I've done it. That to me is a very forward-thinking job seeker, and that's a way you can differentiate yourself. I'm not as concerned that you haven't been employed. I'm more concerned about the applicant who has been doing nothing. So even if you say I've been reaching out to contacts, I've been joining professional associations, that is still someone who's actively engaged in their own professional development. So I think that that's something that definitely can be a real positive in that. I want to show you, we have something at called Vault. Glassdoor is another one. Glassdoor is another great resource where you can go in and look at, it's almost like company reviews through the people that have worked there or currently working there. If we look at, so the career development homepage, and I have this in my slides that I'll share. There's some information, if you scroll down at the bottom, for students and alumni. A lot of these resources are you know, accessible to both students and alumni. One of the things that we have in here, we have Handshake. This is where we post all of our jobs and internship opportunities. So this is another way that you can go in and you can look for postings, but you can also search for employers. And so you can do some research through that way. And we also have something else looking at Vault. That's what I was looking for. So Vault is something else that the Career Center that we pay for. This is where you can go in and you can research companies. You can look at career advice. There's some really good blogs in here if you're a reader and you want to look at that. And then there's also some Vault guides, but I really like the career advice. They allow you to research new industries. So if you're trying to break into a new industry and you really don't know a lot about it, Vault is a really great platform to begin to explore that. And again, the research in companies, you can browse all companies that are in here and find out as much information about that company as you'd like. There's also some different rankings. The other thing is you can just do a quick search. So if you're not sure what industry you want to look at, you can look all industries under a keyword title and it'll pull up any resources that are related to Vault. Okay, let me just pull up the chat. Oh, thank you for letting me know. I don't think I switched my, is that good? Just by a shake of head? Yeah, you can see that? Okay. So Vault is where you can go to research companies. You can look at career advice. And there's also some guides. There's a blog. There's also jobs. So this is something that we pay for in the Department of Career Development and is accessible to students and alumni. Just to show you where I got there from, this is the department homepage. And if you go down to the bottom here, which by the way, because I'm going by this, I'll just show you on our homepage, we did a panel of recent alumni, or not recent alumni, successful alumni and myself. We did a whole theme about networking. If anyone's interested in watching that, you're more than welcome to look at that too, because it goes into a little bit more specifics. There is a box on here called Students and Alumni, and these are where a lot of the resources I'm going to talk about live. The one in particular I was talking about was Vault, and then this is Handshake, where as an alumni, you can log into Handshake and you can look at different postings that are in there. So this is a great way to do some research. I think Vault and Glassdoor are a couple of the top research areas that I would suggest, or research sites. Okay, let me just change back. Yes, alumni can access Handshake. If you click onto, let me share this again, I'll show you. So if you go in here to Handshake, if for whatever reason you should be able to activate your account. If you can't, so you click Activate Login. Even though it's not a central login, all alumni will be able to access that. And you can sign in with your email address. If you have trouble getting in, you just have to call our office or email me and I'll walk you through how to do it if for whatever reason you have trouble getting in. But you have unlimited access to Handshake. That will always be something that is available for you. Also to Career Shift, which I'll show you in just a minute, which I think probably is one of the most valuable tools that we have. Okay, so let me go back here. share my screen again. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to this job search strategies piece. So we talked about applying to advertise openings. This is a very small percentage of jobs that are posted this way. This would be your job search platforms like Handshake, like Indeed, going to organizations' websites, you know, so if you want to work for Deloitte, you go to their website, you look for career opportunities and you apply that way. Again, this is being what I would call a reactive job seeker. You're reacting to an opening that exists. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great way to do research. It's a great way to learn about the industry, and it certainly is a way to apply to positions. But going back to, I think, Carol, you asked it at the beginning, going back to that idea of is so frustrating when you apply to just a ton of jobs, and it's a lot of time, energy, and effort to do applications, targeted resumes, and you just don't hear back, and you don't even get the interview. Or maybe you get the interview and you just, it's almost sometimes I think more heartbreaking when you make it all the way to the end and then you just don't pan out as the final candidate. It's such a competitive way to apply for a job. It's a strategy, but it's not my number one strategy. My number one strategy is always tapping into the hidden job market. A lot of people use that phrase, but not a lot of people understand what it means. So what this means is you're essentially targeting the types of employers and the types of companies that you would like to work for. And you are going either directly to their website, or you are going to LinkedIn, or wherever else you can find connections, and you are looking for people that potentially work there that you can begin connecting with. So you're not asking for a job, though. You're more of asking for advice and input, either on a field or industry, and or things that can help you in the long run as you think about making that switch over to a different industry. I use the analogy with students, like it's the difference between taking the thruway in New York State from Rochester to Syracuse and taking the back roads. The thruway is like advertised openings. It's direct, you know where you're going, there's structure around it, they even ask you to pay for it. It's a very prescribed way. It's the most direct route. The unadvertised hidden job market is kind of like finding your way along the back roads. You might find, you take a left here, you take a right here. It's taking you through new places you've never seen before. But the end result is you're taking the path that's a little less traveled. And sometimes you're going to find these hidden gems along the way. And you're like, this is a really cool place. I never even anticipated ending up here. And so it's the same process with job searching. As you think about tapping into the hidden job market, it's more about making connections and learning information that will ultimately help you be successful in that industry. It is really never about picking up the phone or sending an email saying, I really want a job, can you help me? I can tell you from firsthand experience, when someone emails me and says, do you have a job in your Department of Career Development? I'm very interested in this work. That's a one-word response, no. If someone reaches out to me and says, I'm really interested in the work you do, and I would love to buy you a cup of coffee and talk to you more about how you get into your field and any advice that you could share with me as somebody who's thinking about it, I would really appreciate that. I love my job and I love to talk about it. And so any chance I get to do that, if my schedule allows and someone's being direct with me, I will sit down with them and I will tell them everything that they might need to know. And I might even give them 5 of my best friends to go call afterward that they should reach out to, because I think that they're a really good source of information. So the idea is that you make such a good impression through those conversations, and you improve your skill set by taking the advice that they give, that when I have a position open, it's a little different because I work at a public school, but if I work for a private company or one where I didn't have to post it, I could either way reach out to you and say, I think you're a great candidate and we have this opening and I would love for you to apply. I can guarantee, as long as you're highlighting the right skills, you're going to get an interview. You're at least going to get that courtesy interview. And especially if you use my name as a reference, if you're applying for jobs maybe with some of my colleagues, you're probably going to get an interview. And so I think that that hidden job market has much more potential. It might take some extra time to turn over any kind of rocks and really gain traction. But once you do, the return on investment is so much more powerful. And I can say that so confidently because I've been doing this for 20 years and I've seen the difference in the success. And at the beginning, people are often like, oh, this is so hard. You know, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. Give it a little bit of time. And if you stick with it and you're persistent, you will start to see some opportunities arise. And then the last piece in here is about networking. And to me, that's all part of the hidden job market, you know, networking to research and learn. So if I wanted to jump in a different industry that I know nothing about, but I want to learn about it, I want to reach out to people that are doing that work and I want to ask them about it. But I also can reach out to referrals to say, you know, what do you know about this industry and what's coming down the pike? Are there any companies that are coming to the area? If I were going to relocate, do you know anybody in this area I could connect with? So things like that. I want to share with you, going back to our website for a second. Can everyone see the career development page? Okay. So going back down here to where we were before, students and alumni. This is by far my favorite resource ever that we have. In fact, when I got to Geneseo, we didn't have it, and I said, I can't do my job without it. And so I absolutely needed to have this to do my work. It's called Career Shift. And when you click on it, it's gonna take you, so all alumni have access to this. And you're gonna go to sign up now, but you can wait to do that in a minute because I'm gonna show you how to use it. I already am a member, so I'm just gonna go to log in. And so when you first sign up, it's gonna ask you a bunch of fields, but that's only a one-time deal, you have to do that. When you go to log in, it's going to have a pop-up here, but you really don't need to look at that right now. So you can search by contacts, companies, and jobs. So say I want to relocate. Someone said they want to relocate and they were looking at education jobs, other places. So I want to look specifically at companies and I want to do a search. And I want to look in, you can look by industry or you can do a keyword descriptor in here. So let's say I just want to look at industry and I want to look at cultural, let's just say, and I'm interested in cultural organizations or industry of education. Then I want to look at area. So I can type in a city, I can type in a state. So say I want to look at, you know, let's go to Florida. And then I want to highlight a city and I'm interested in Jacksonville. And if I go to search, I did a really big search, but you can refine it a little bit more if you want to. I have 926 companies that came up in my search results. Out of this search results, you can save companies, you can look at company details, you can look at if they have any publicly posted positions. So it does function like a job search aggregate where it brings jobs together. So if you have jobs that are posted externally, if nothing comes up as a result, it just means that there's no jobs posted publicly. But at the very least, you can click on this company and I can see a little bit about what they do. If I decide that I really like this company, a lot of cases they'll give you their website that you could click to. So the idea that I was saying before, which was develop a list of potential contacts. The idea is that you come up with a curated list of potential companies that you want to apply for ultimately, that you want to do research on, that you want to find out more about. But if you've never been to Jacksonville, but you're interested in going there and you want to see what the job market looks like, this is a way for you to curate a list of potential companies in Jacksonville. So just the way I said before about doing job search campaigns for industries, you can also do job search campaigns for areas of interest. So you can look at geographical preference. So if you're from downstate and you want to look upstate, you can do that. If you want to go to the other side of the country, you can do that. But I would say that that would be a job search campaign. This would be my PR job search campaign that I'm doing in Jacksonville, Florida. and you want to manage and strategize that particular campaign. You can save your searches too, so you can go back in. And again, they call them campaigns too in CareerShift. And so you can save your documents in here if you wanted to as well. So if you had a PR resume as opposed to your HR resume, you can save those documents in here and sort of manage your follow-up accordingly, okay? But you can search contacts, jobs. So this has a lot of power in terms of the search. This is a database that is continually updated. It's connected to LinkedIn for contacts. So if you want to look at company contacts, it oftentimes will link you to a person's LinkedIn profile. So there's a lot of power in generating lists of potential employers through using CareerShift, okay? The other thing I do not want to forget to say, Michelle would be so mad at me if I forgot to mention this, is brand new. We just launched a really great platform, our Alumni Career Advisor Network. And the beauty of this was, and when Michelle and I first started having conversations about this, is we always envisioned the Alumni Career Advisor Network as not just alumni helping students, but alumni helping alumni. And part of that was, you know, I have a staff of 4 professionals and we have, you know, just shy of 5,000 students and so many alums. It's impossible to meet with everyone individually. But with this platform, what we would love to see you all do is to reach out to your peers and say, you know, I see you're working in this industry. I'd love to find out more. If you can connect with other alumni, that is your way in. I've never seen an institution with alumni who are as devoted as Geneseo alumni and wanting to always help. And so I think you really should take advantage of that connection. And then when you get to where you want to go, turn around and pay it forward. I will show you what that looks like real quick. So. Bear with me, I have all these things open here. All right, so going back here for a second from the career development main page. It's all linked down here with the other stuff I showed you before. And if you look at Career Advisor Network, you can also get to it from the alumni page as well. And so if you go here, you can get advice or give advice. And so you create your profile. If you have a profile already on LinkedIn, you can bring in your information or you can just create your own profile. But once you get in there, it's really cool because you can see, let me see if it'll let me do this quick. You can see, oh, I know it's going to give me trouble with the central logon. I don't want to waste time showing you, but you'll be able to go in quickly and click in there without a central sign-on to see other advisors that are in that network, and it'll show you their profile, their background, how they want to be contacted, details about their, you know, industry that they're working in. And it gives you some guidance and support around, you know, how do you make these connections? And so, and I'd be happy to help you with any specific questions you have with it. And I'm sure Michelle would as well. But I encourage you, we encourage you to definitely take advantage of that because we have hundreds of alumni that are in there representing so many different industries. And it's really a wonderful resource that is brand new, and you are all part of the reason that we wanted to invest the time and effort, and alumni sponsor, you know, pays for it. So it's a phenomenal resource. Someone else asked about a question. I don't want to forget to focus on this. Another resource in here is something called Parker Dewey. Parker Dewey are remote micro internships that are open for anyone. This is a great way to look at remote work. So if you are interested in breaking into a new field, you create a profile in here, and employers that have independent projects that they want to fund, they will hire you to do small projects. It's a great way to build your skill set. It's a great way to test out certain industries. So we've been promoting that quite a bit because there's some really neat opportunities in there. with that. And then with, let me show you my PowerPoint again. I'll show you. There are some other resources that I will highlight in terms of the COVID-19 adaptations. So these are a list of clickable links that I can send you where you can look at remote job opportunities. You can look at connections with freelance companies. You can look at tech careers. We have a whole range of remote related resources. Also, job resources as it relates to companies who are hiring right now. So the who's hiring right now link on LinkedIn is wonderful. That will link to any company who's hiring right now. And then you can also look on Handshake. There's a filter search with a direct link to companies who are hiring post-COVID. As well as this Candor link down here are live updates of which companies are still hiring or freezing their hiring. So you can see what companies have become stagnant and are actually losing traction in that search. So you can steer clear of those. And then just generally job market updates and then industries that are still hiring. So some good articles that I found that I can send out as well. And I know Michelle has also all of your email addresses. So we could just email this out to everyone too, if you'd like. And then in the resources, I also put all of our resources that I highlighted today with a direct link to them. And you'll see that one of the resources that might look a little odd, it says, what can I do with my major? And the reason I put that in there is because if you click on a different major, it'll show you all of the different things you can do with it and the employers who would hire you. And so you can use that employer list to help you with your job search target. So with your target companies, as you're starting to look through different industries, it'll help you give you the wording that you're looking for as you're doing some of those keyword searches. That sometimes I think can be a struggle for some people as they go through. And I know we're running over time, but just to kind of close up, you know, I can't say, you know, I've hit on all these things, but the one thing I didn't say is about patience and persistence. This definitely takes time. And honestly, finding a job and really breaking into a new industry, it requires a lot of time, effort, and energy. And I think there's way more strategy involved in the job search overall than there ever has been, because there's so many online resources. And so I would just say, before you jump into the internet and just like searching everything you can possibly find, back up and think about your strategy and really work out a framework of how you're going to approach things. You know, if you know that you are somebody who's not maybe the most excited about networking, how are you going to approach this strategically? Where are you going to start? Because it's not just about making as many contacts as you possibly can. It's about making contacts and then making meaning out of those contacts. So actually following up with them. So it's not enough just to send them a connection on LinkedIn, but you actually should follow up and ask for a conversation and actually talk to people. And I know for some people that are more introverted, that can be a little overwhelming. But for other people, it's your natural, you know, it's what you do best. And so I say align your strategies with your strengths. Start there, because then it won't feel so painful in the process. You know, for me, I love to research things. I like to understand things. So my strength has always been learning about companies and industries. And I like focusing on, you know, what's growing and the trends. I'm good at that. You know, so I know that that's my area of strength. I would start there. So you have to really do some true digging in and some self-assessment as you start this. It's not easy. And I would suggest not to do it by yourself. And really that's why I'm here, to be a support and a sounding board if you have some questions. And then of course, turn to each other. You know, your alumni mentor network is really strong. And one thing, like I said, I know about Geneseo is that our alums like to hire Geneseo grads and other alums. So use you know, that low hanging fruit to jump right in and start some of those conversations. So any questions? I'm sorry I went over a little bit. As you can tell, there's a lot of detail to some of this stuff. Was this helpful? Did anyone learn any takeaways or some new things you might think about as you move forward? And you can feel free to unmute and this is good networking practice.
Hi, Jessie. I just had a quick question.
Sure.
What is the difference between a PR resume and an HR resume? You referenced that earlier.
Yeah, I was just throwing out different areas that I could think of, but really when you tailor, I was just talking about industries. So for example, if I was interested in working in HR versus maybe a position in public relations. So I could have skill set, but how I might articulate that on a resume would be different. How I would highlight that in a cover letter might be different. But maybe I still have the same skill set, but how I draw out those skills and define how I use those skills might look a little bit differently. Those are just kind of arbitrary areas that I pulled out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts? I will make sure that everyone who's on the call gets the PowerPoint sent to them. And you have my email. And I know in some cases, people's situations are very unique. And I've been doing this also long enough to know that sometimes the stories are quite, sometimes it's exciting because you're thinking about something new, and sometimes it's upsetting and difficult to share in public. And so I completely can appreciate that. And if there are things that you did want to discuss that are more of a private conversation, please feel free to reach out to me. I understand that, you know, it's a lot of resources and it's overwhelming. And if you haven't done it in a while, it's definitely changed. I can speak to it because I do it every day, but I can promise you how I job searched, you know, when I, you know, first finished college and now is completely very, very, very different. And so if you haven't done it in a while, I can see where it'd be incredibly overwhelming, and you're not alone in that feeling. So happy to have those conversations offline with anyone. So it was nice meeting you all. Michelle, is there anything you want to say closing out?
No, just thank you, Jessie, for presenting this evening. I think very helpful, especially the resources that I'm sure many didn't even know we had. So thanks for, I learned things today, and we'll be doing a follow-up and sharing the PowerPoint and the information. So as soon as we get that together, we will send it.
Yeah. Great. Well, have a wonderful night, everyone.
Thank you, Jessie and Michelle. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye, Michelle.